Hello and welcome to this week's live timeline session. Sorry I'm a little bit later than our normal 12:30 time. I was doing some housework this morning that took a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I got it done and I'm here only a little bit late, and it's time to do our little practicing and timeline session for the week. If you don't know what this is about, I'm going through the sort of intermediate level, the mastery timeline from the next generation clarinet method. And each week I'm going through just one of the sessions. Of course, on these sessions, you can spend more than one block of time working on them. From so far, I've been pretty much able to work through them in just the one block. But as we go on, we may get into some more tricky ones that take multiple times to go through. And of course, you're welcome to take more times as well. This is perfect if you have the next generation clarinet method and you kind of want to work through these sessions or see how a session goes from my point of view. It's also great if you don't have the next generation clarinet method, because you can sort of see how I practice. If you can learn these exercises by ear, they're valuable to do. And also if it interests you in getting the next generation clarinet method, then that's great as well. You can go to quickstartclarinet.com/nextgenbook to check that out, or check the link in the description for that as well. But today we have our second week of new warm-ups, and we're doing some tongue tickles, which I think will be very fun. It's a really kind of wacky exercise. It sounds kind of bad, but it really makes a difference in your quality of articulation. So I'm looking forward to working on that. But first we have our warm-up. I'm starting with the Christmas tree long tones, and I'm just going to do them exactly how they're written in the book. Nice and comfortable range, going for that best sound quality. that was the time for that one. I was feeling good. I haven't played in a couple days, so it's really nice to just get really back into those fundamentals and feel how everything's going and really get a nice warm-up. Now for our technique, we have the ascending scale pattern, one of my favorite scale patterns. Last time I did it in C major, so I think I'll mix it up. Let's go ahead and go to F major and D minor. And of course with a metronome, this will be a different metronome, so this will be fun. And I'm gonna still go with a pretty nice comfortable tempo. Again, I haven't played in a few days, so I just wanna make sure that my quality is really, really there as I get back into things. So on this one, my fingers are feeling pretty good, but I really want to make sure that the sound quality is good. I did a few repeats in around the B flat to try to get the B flat to sound really good. I felt like my lower clarion register sounded actually quite nice, so I was just making sure that I could get the B flat as close to that as possible. Let me go on to the D harmonic minor now. Just trying to get used to hearing that in my ear because it is so different to do this in harmonic minor. Again, trying to get that B flat to sound as good as it possibly can. I really feel like today it's a little bit extra stuffy, especially when I'm not able to get good resonance fingerings down, which coming from the C sharp to the B flat is a little bit tricky for my normal resonance fingering. So I'm trying to get no resonance fingering to sound as good as it can. But last but not least, let me get the melodic minor. Nearly perfect timing. So that was the ascending scales. When you're doing these, don't feel like you need to get through the major and both minor variations of it in one session. You can certainly do it where each day that you do this as your daily warm-ups, and for each session you do just the major scale. Then the next time, just the harmonics to get minor. Then the next time, just the melodic minor, or whatever works well for you. I'm able to get through all of them in this time, but it's even pushing it a little bit. I might like to go a little bit deeper on some of the quality things a little bit. So maybe even for me, just doing 2 scales would be a little bit better to go more into the quality of it rather than just trying to get my fingers wiggled through more notes, because that's not what makes us better. What makes us better is being able to do the clarinet thing better. Cool. But let's go on to articulation. Of course, with this one also with the metronome. Yeah, I'm not feeling ambitious enough to do it at 120 today. Let's do 112. That's kind of a nice, like, still very comfortable tempo for me, but kind of fast comfortable, so I think it'll be good. 120 is also pretty comfortable, but it's like in that weird in-between zone, and then you're like 130, 144 area is like the edge of starting to feel definitely uncomfortable as for 16th notes. So let's do some articulation. and this tempo is a little bit less comfortable than I was expecting, actually. Again, it's sort of in that weird sweet spot where it's not super fast, where I have to like really push, but it's not slow enough that I could be as deliberate as I could be. What I'm going to do is do it again and try to be more deliberate. And that's sort of what I was doing as I was isolating some of those higher notes, was trying to really being very precise and deliberate. So let me try that on kind of the whole exercise. So that's that. There's maybe 40 seconds left, but I actually want to explain a really important concept that I think will be very, very helpful for everybody to get. What I was doing, especially when I was isolating those higher notes again, is I was really thinking about how to move just the tip of my tongue. And that's probably something that you've heard before, is that you should move just the tip of your tongue when you're articulating. But the way that I was thinking about it, I think, is what really makes it a helpful idea. So instead of thinking about only moving the tip of my tongue, which implies don't move the middle of your tongue or the back of your tongue, or don't move the embouchure, don't change the air, it's hard to think that way. It's like the famous example of, if I tell you don't think of a pink elephant, you immediately think of the pink elephant. If you're thinking don't move the middle of my tongue, don't move the middle of my tongue, then you end up moving that. Or don't tighten my embouchure, then you end up doing it. So it's much more beneficial when you're practicing to think about proactively doing something positive rather than not doing something negative. It's easier for our brains to process that. So what I was thinking, instead of only move the tip of my tongue, don't move anything else, I was actually paying attention to the position of my tongue when I was just playing the note. And that's why I was holding it long sometimes, doing... And then instead of thinking, don't move the middle or back of my tongue, I was thinking, keep those steady and then move the tip of the tongue. So you can see how that's slightly more positive way of looking at it, where I was thinking, keep this position rather than don't change from this position. Because if you're thinking don't change, then you automatically change. Whereas keeping this is a little bit more positive and a little bit more proactive. So that is my little nugget of wisdom for today that you should consider when you're playing, is always figure out a way to frame it positively, doing something proactive in a good way rather than not doing negative things. But that's our warm-up. I am going to go ahead and swab out so I don't get too spitty here. And while I'm doing that, I'll read our focus for the main session today. So this is 14. Feels like there's a lot more in here than I initially thought, but it's really good. And I would generally recommend that you do a session each day or each time you practice. I'm only doing them once a week when it's the live timeline session with everybody. So that makes it a little bit different. But today's focus is we're doing the tongue tickles on page 42. And here's what I say the purpose is. This exercise is a little weird, so be sure to click the little red play for a more in-depth explanation of how this works. That's referring to like the little video demonstration in the actual book. Especially if you struggled with the three-part articulation, this exercise will help you to move your tongue truly independently from your air and embouchure. Without that independent motion, it will be hard to have clean, clear articulations. So this one's all about clean, clear articulations. Let me pull up page 42 and the actual exercise. Okay, so this is Tongue Tickles, and let me read the little explanation here as well. So it's written as quarter notes, and there's like a normal quarter note and then an X note head quarter note. The X note heads indicate putting your tongue lightly on the reed, creating a fuzzy sound that tickles your tongue. Keep the air going and alternate between releasing clear notes and placing the tongue lightly to get the fuzzy tickles. So that's a really important idea, that we're releasing those clear notes. We're not re-articulating. So basically what we're doing on this exercise is we tongue our normal note, ta, and then gently bring the tongue to the reed where it still vibrates a little, and we get that sort of tickle. So it's ta, va, va, and then it goes up the scale. So let me do this, and at first I'm not going to do a metronome and probably not even worry about the rhythm too much. I'm just going to try to find that sweet spot of just very gently putting my tongue on the reed. Or I've never thought of this before, but this is also a fantastic exercise for practicing tongue and finger coordination, because you're playing the one fuzzy note and then you release at the same time the next note comes out. If you can line up this coordination, then you should be able to line up anything, because this is actually much harder coordination, because there is no space of the articulation actually happening, because we're going from straight fuzzy sound immediately to releasing the clear sound. I'm starting to release my tongue a little bit too much. That's why I squeaked. So I'm going to try to be, again, more deliberate about where I'm placing the middle and the back of the tongue. And now that we're around halfway through, let me give you some pointers and things to watch out for on this exercise to make sure that you aren't making the mistakes that could result in articulation mistakes. First, try as best you can to be placing your tongue where it would be if you were normally articulating. So that's why every now and then you hear me do like a couple. That's me sort of feeling out where I normally place my tongue. It's possible to get this fuzzy effect by placing your tongue a little bit too low so that the tip of the reed's still vibrating, but you can actually push pretty hard down here and still let the tip of the reed vibrate. That's not really the point of this exercise. We want to still tongue, tip of the reed, tip of the tongue like normal, but as the reed's vibrating, just being ultra gentle there so that it can still vibrate a little bit. The other thing to pay attention to is how your releases and your clear notes actually go. We want to go straight from fuzzy sound to clear sound. If you're getting a little bit of a break in between, something like this, then that means you're actually pushing off the reed, and you can hear there's that little bit of thuddiness to the starts of those notes as well. And that's one of my favorite uses of this exercise with my students, is to eliminate the thuddiness in the articulation, because thuddiness is usually from like hitting the reed a little bit too hard. So if you can do the tongue tickles and then come straight off without diving board off of the reed, just straight off, then you're in good shape to not get any thud at the start of your articulations. So let me continue on and see if you can hear any of that happening in my playing, because it does happen every now and then. Oh, actually, one other really big thing too to not mess up is make sure that the air isn't backing off when you go to the fuzzy sound. It's not... We don't want to back off the air to get fuzziness in the sound. We need to keep the air going, because that's another big important point of this, is the independence between the air and the embouchure and the tongue motion touching the reed. So we can come to the reed and very lightly touch it and get the fuzziness, but the air is still going full strength, the embouchure is still steady, all of that good stuff. And I do also highly recommend sprinkling some sort of normal articulation in here, both to feel where your tongue's touching the reed normally, and also to see if you can start applying how it feels to do the tongue tickles, and then just adding like the tiniest bit more pressure or support to fully dampen the reed instead of just getting the fuzzy tickles. Also, as you get higher, it gets trickier. could hear I was starting to get a little bit of like what sounded like very rapid articulation, a little bit like that kind of thing. That's actually not terrible on this exercise. It doesn't mean that you're really doing anything wrong. What's happening there is the reed's vibrating and the tongue's coming towards it, and it's sort of like the tongue's getting bounced off by the reed. So that's what's causing that very rapid articulation. It's good that your tongue is that relaxed. If you can keep it from bouncing back so that it slaps the reed and actually causes it to stop, that'd be better. But it's not the end of the world if you're getting that quick articulation. I'm experimenting now a little bit with how I'm touching my tongue to the reed to see if I can get good fuzziness on this higher notes. Yeah, I'm finding the only way to get that true fuzzy sound on these is to put actually a lot more of my tongue on the reed than normal, and I don't think that's a good habit to be building. So I think it's okay to have that little bit of like bouncing off sound again. Just try to be as light as possible. And again, as you get onto these higher notes, it gets a little bit trickier, and I think maybe a little bit less beneficial to do this exercise as well. Still, the good clear releases are very, very beneficial. But I find when I get the good fuzzy sound, my releases are actually not very good because I have too much tongue on the reed. So you want to make sure that you don't run into that. What's more important is coming off clear and beautiful sound rather than getting a specific kind of fuzzy sound on the fuzzy part of it, or the tongue tickle part. And I think that's the ultimate goal of this exercise, and we're about out of time. The ultimate goal of this exercise is to notice and feel how little the tongue has to move to actually articulate. On these higher notes, the difference between and let me leak so you can hear my air. The difference between no sound there and getting sound was like an almost imperceptible change in the motion of the tongue. And I think if I keep my tongue motion that minimal when I'm actually doing like more normal articulation, it's easy to sound very good because I'm moving very, 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 very little, and it's easy to go super fast, again, because I'm moving so little. And all of that work to keep the middle and the back of my tongue more stationary and more steady was also very, very easy and very natural, because I wasn't moving hardly at all with the tip of the tongue, so it wasn't pulling the rest of the tongue out of position. So that was really good, and I think that's going to be sort of my reflection note for today, is that this exercise is all about minimal tongue motion. So I'm just going to say great for minimal motion. The tongue moves less than I would think. Less tongue motion needed. Great. So that's the live timeline session for today. If you have the book, The Next Generation Clarinet Method, I highly encourage you to work through these timelines for yourself. There's sort of a test in there to figure out what level timeline you should be on, the beginner, intermediate, or advanced one. I think I would consider myself an advanced player, but I'm getting a ton out of this intermediate one. So it's really good to go in there and go in depth with these warm-up things. So thanks so much for watching. If you don't have the Next Generation Clarinet Method, check the link in the description or go to quickstartclarinet.com/nextgenbook to learn about getting it. It's a fantastic program. I highly recommend it if you're trying to get better at the clarinet. The trick is you have to actually do this stuff, though, and really go for the quality, which hopefully I'm demonstrating that really commitment to the quality. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next week for the next live timeline session.